Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for making time to join me. Um, I'm I know those of you who are watching this as part of oh, hey, Giuseppe. Those of you who are watching this as part of the Web Development Bootcamp, especially excited to chat to you. But those of you who are just brand new, who are joining because you're interested in web monetization and who's not interested in getting paid, I welcome you as well. My name is Jessica Rose, and this is one of the guest speaker sessions for the free web development bootcamp we've been running. And this is exceptionally exciting because this is our first sponsor session. Um, hey. And the sponsor sessions really help us keep the web development bootcamp running. So this session's been brought to you by the good folks at the Interledger Foundation, and Alex is going to be our guest today. Um, those of you who are, and I imagine almost all of you are younger than me, may not remember when the sort of web was new. When people first started building for the web, we didn't often have a clear idea how we were going to get paid from it. And who doesn't want to get paid? And the dominant model that we sort of landed on, unfortunately, I might say myself, is advertising. And Alex, as part of Interledger, is going to be talking to us about a different model, a different paradigm. What if we could build things for the web that we love and things we're passionate about and have that pay us, but without having to rely on advertising? And especially not necessarily have to rely on some of the advertising networks that have, well, some privacy implications and some messiness here and there. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So we're going to be talking about web monetization. Am I cheating if I ask, well, what is that? Is that going to give me too much of a preview in the talk? Just be like, web monetization? What?
I think I think actually the name of it is very confusing because if you try to Google it, you'll see it
Or
talks a lot
DuckDuckGo it?
about or rather DuckDuckGo it, yes. It talks a lot about making money on the web or making money with something you produced on the web, which is quite accurate as to what web monetization is. It's a standard that helps you make money with your work on the web. Now, the fact that right now it's been made into a standard, or we're trying really hard to make it into a standard, it's at the W3C. You've probably had Bruce here earlier talking about W3C quite a bit.
And we had
It's
Lola
standard.
join us as well. Lola's on
Yeah.
the developer community. So she came to be
Oh,
like,
I
hey,
saw that.
oh, just last week. What a great tie in. So, for those of you in the boot camp who joined us last week, hey, this is a good carry on from Lola's. And for those of you who aren't, we'll go ahead and we'll link to Lola's video in the chat. You know what? You're going to cover all of this. How about I go ahead and gracefully step out of the way? We're going to be I've been told, well, by you, that you're going to be delighted to answer people's questions about monetization. People should go ahead and save their questions to the end.
Definitely. I mean, if questions do pop up, I'll address them at the end. I'm aiming for. I'm really sorry for this. I'm aiming for about 20-25 minutes here, and then
Nice
we'll
and
have,
chill.
yeah, a lot of time for questions. I actually love questions, and people should save those till towards the end.
Fabulous. I'll go ahead and give you your slides and remove myself gracefully. Everyone, enjoy Alex.
Thanks, Jess. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. And thank you for having me. As I said, I want to talk about weaponization today and the little thing called the Interledger. We'll see towards the end of this what the Interledger is, but for the purpose of the beginning of this talk, it's a foundation that wants to make paying people as easy as the internet. Right now, if you're trying to pay people or get paid from countries which are not considered economically advanced, it's really hard. People don't have a bank account. People don't have access to the same financial instruments as me and Jess have in the UK, for example, or people in the US. And as part of this work, we've we've tried to see how people could make money on the internet because we work on the internet. If you think about how you make money on the internet in 2021, if you try to duck that go it, as Jess said, you'll see there's a few options, but the very first option that always pops up are ads. Everybody tells you to make a website, put ads on it, make your blog, put ads on it, and you'll make money. Here's what people don't actually tell you about ads. They're quite invasive. They take out over a lot of the UX. Trying to fit your ads into your user experience is a nightmare. And on top of that, you have to have a lot of visitors to make money off of ads, to the point where maybe you make 2 cents an ad, even less. It kind of depends. Um, it also there's also something happening on the web right now, which is kind of making ads unfavorable towards a certain type of people. For example, developers. There's so many of them. If you go try to read the news, for example, the BBC or CBS or whatever type of news agency you want, if you try to go and read the news, you have to scroll through a massive amount of ads. Ads are everywhere, so people kind of ignore it. Even if you get paid more with that, if people click on it, um, but people are kind of trained to ignore ads, right? You have to see something maybe 6, 7 times before you click on it, before you consider it. And sadly, you lose a lot of your users if you keep showing ads and they're not interested. Other problems with showing ads on your website is ad blockers are the de facto standard for developers. I have probably installed several ad blockers throughout the last 10 years, and I keep switching them because ad creators get smarter and smarter, and you have to avoid them. That means your website isn't going to make absolutely any money from people like me who are blocking ads. And here's the problem. I would like to pay people for their work. I would like to reward creators on the web. It's just I really don't like ads. So if the ads are the way you monetize your website, you're kind of losing out on me. What if there was an alternative to ads? One of the reasons ads right now are working is when you have 1 million people paying you half a cent or 2 cents a visit, it kind of tends to add up, right? But what happens if you've got, like my website, for example, I've got maybe 100 active users, 1,000 if I'm really lucky. If Jess tweets or retweets some of my content, usually that tends to bring people to my website, right? I will never make money off of ads. I will never be able to make enough to justify putting ads on the website to begin with. Here's where web monetization and why web monetization came along. Web monetization is a standard in the community group at the W3C. Um, and it's made to solve the problem of ads. What happens if I can't display ads? What happens if I don't want ads, but I still want to make money as a creator, as a developer, right? I should be able to receive the same amount of money from my users rather than from this giant corporation. If you think about kind of the people who sell ads or who have ads, there's two big two big players own probably 70% of them. You've seen one of them. I'm not going to name names, but you've seen one of them rebrand their company last week. So if I wanted to get money in an ethical way, or to be rewarded from my users, from people who read my content, web monetization was made for that. And it's made putting ads into your website. If you think about it, putting ads into your website is not that hard because people want ads on the internet. Web monetization in the same way. It was created to make it easy for you to get paid for your work as a creator in small increments of money. Same way as an ad gives you 2 cents, web monetization currently gives you 36 cents an hour. So people who join your website can pay for their time on your website. And here's how you put it in an actual website. A little meta tag. You've learned about HTML early in the bootcamp. I've looked at some of the videos. The way to put it in your website is to add this little meta tag that says this is a monetization meta tag, and here's my wallet. Here's the place where I'd like to be paid for my work, and that's about it. The way you get the wallet, we'll get through that in a second, but this is the easiest way to use the web monetization API. Using this meta tag in your web page, the page you just made, will enable you to use it. Now I'll actually show you how that looks like, how you get that wallet address to be able to put it on your website. So if we'll go, um, there's different wallet providers right now. One of the ones I use are the ones I use. It's called Uphold, and that's where my wallet lives. There's also a second one. So if you go to Web Monetization, .org, you'll see all the available providers right now. There are two providers, Uphold and GitHub. I use Uphold for my provider. I also have a GitHub account. It kind of depends on how you want to get paid. Uphold has the most amount of currencies um, available. Because I am in the UK, my website accepts pounds. Because of the underlying technology, people can actually pay from dollars to pounds. It doesn't have to be pounds. I get paid in pounds anyway. So I have an Uphold account. Signing up for an account is a two-step process. I'd like an account. Here's my email address. Thank you. And I have a wallet in here called Coil, in which you can see how much I've made in 12 months. I think this is how much I made. Yeah, this is how much I made in exactly a year. I monetized my website in November of last year, and in the past year I've made 11 pounds. Before this I tried ads, and probably 3 years of ads I made $1.50. Web monetization somehow worked out better for me, and you can see how much money I've made so far. But um, the wallet comes with an address, and that's the address I'm gonna use on the meta tag. The address in here in the Upload UI is called an Interledger payment pointer. If you click on the Interledger payment pointer, you'll see an address that starts with a dollar something dot uphold.com slash whatever, and that is my address. That's my wallet, and this is how I tell the world I'd like to be paid on my website, right? Now to be monetized, after I've got my account, I've got this little payment pointer on my website in the head. If I go and inspect my website in the head, let me just zoom this for you. So in the head, I have a little meta tag called monetization with the payment pointer I showed you, and that's it. My website gets paid. To actually see it in action, so if I'm trying to get money, just by me being on the web page, I actually get paid 36 cents an hour, and that's because I am using a web monetization provider. If I wasn't using a web monetization provider, I wouldn't actually pay my website. Whenever somebody is on my website, I get a little bit of money. You can see I have a lot of incoming requests, and that's because I spent some time on my website. I'll get 2 cents when I think 2 cents means 20. No, 2 cents means 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'll get the 2 cents because I viewed my website for that bit. Now that's the only thing you need to do to monetize your website. Add that little payment pointer in a meta tag to your website. Congratulations, you're starting to make money. Way easier than ads, way more friendlier than ads. If like me, I like to pay back some of the money you make. I like to help other creators as well. If you'd like to pay creators for their work, there's a second component to this. So monetization relies on people putting this on the websites, and then other people, users, visiting those websites with the web monetization provider. Right now, sadly, there's only one web monetization provider. We're working really hard to add more people into the ecosystem, more monetization providers. The same way there's two wallets, we'd like to have a couple of options. Sadly, right now, there's only one web monetization provider, and that's Coil. If you go to coil.com, and sign up, it's just as easy to create an account. They do something similar to a subscription. You give Coil $5, and then Coil spreads that $5 around on all the websites you visit. So, for example, I have a subscription with Coil, and that means all the websites that have that little meta tag on them, I pay the people on those websites at the rate of 36 cents an hour. if you want to sign up, for a Coil account, and just if you don't want to put monetization in your website, but you'd like to pay it forward and pay other creators, if you sign up for a Coil account, I got from Uchi, that developer relations person, I got Coil code. So if you reach out to me on Twitter, I'm Lakatos on Twitter. If you reach out on Twitter, I'll give you a Coil code, and that gives you 6 months free of Coil. So it's about $30, and you can use it to pay other creators on the internet. Now, I'm not saying the first website you should visit is alexlakatos.com. That would be cheating. But if you'd like to, I don't know, pay the web forward, that wouldn't be bad. If you're testing web monetization, you might as well test it on alexlakatos.com. But if you reach out, I'll give you a code. You can use the code, and it gives you a free trial, and a free trial for 6 months. It's going to look something like this. You won't need a credit card, you won't need anything to try it out. It's just a code. I'll give you the code to redeem it. Because they're individual codes, please reach out on Twitter, DM me on Twitter. I've got open DMs, and I'll be more than happy to share the codes I've got available. I've got about 100 or so of them right now, first come, first serve. So please reach out on Twitter. But if you'd like to pay other people for it, you'll sign up for a Coil account, and the Coil account comes with an extension. Because I'm in Chrome, I already installed the extension on Chrome. I've installed the extension on Chrome, and it shows up in my bar right here. And you can see the Chrome Web Store isn't supported yet. There's no web monetization tag on the Chrome store. But if I go on my website, the icon looks a little bit different. There's a green little icon there that says this website is monetized. I'm paying for my time here. I'm paying. Well, technically, I'm cheating here because I'm paying myself. It's a different question. But my Coil membership supports this website through web monetization. And if you go to other websites, I don't know. For example, dev.to is monetized as well. It's one of the biggest web monetized sites. So this pays them. Actually, what they do is they take the money they make out of web monetization, and they donate it to various different foundations and open source charities. You can even put it in your profile. So a bunch of websites on the internet right now are web monetized, and you could help those creators just by surfing the web without doing anything. If you'd like to put it on your website, adding that meta tag to your head is the way to go. Now, this is web monetization 101. If you want to get paid, put a little meta tag in your page. If you'd like to help pay other people, you can install Coil, and I'll give you a coupon code for 6 months. That's going to help you get started by paying the web forward. I'll go back into my presentation. Because it looks really simple. It's a meta tag, and you pay people. Just by having that meta tag in your page, you get paid. You get paid by other people, right? What happens though if you have a more complicated use case? For example, for me, I wasn't gonna gatekeep anything. I wasn't gonna give people anything for my content. They don't see ads, and they get to kind of help me in my journey as a creator on the web. What happens if there's it's a more complex use case? Because this is a web standard, it actually comes with different layers of support. So the simplest way to use it is through the meta tag. The second layer of support is a JavaScript API, where you can figure out when people started or stopped paying you on your website. Every time they give you an extra increment, because of the rate is 36 cents an hour, right? That means you get paid every second, every few seconds, an increment of a cent, 100th of a cent, or something like that. So whenever one of those micropayments happens, you get an event. And all of that is documented in the JavaScript API. The reason the JavaScript API is not actually here on my slides, and there's a link instead, is right now we are actively working to make that better. So whatever I would show you here would probably be valid for the next week and a half, 2 weeks at most. And weeks from now, it's going to look slightly different. So if you're watching this later or even now, I'd ask you to go to the website and kind of bookmark it and keep coming back to it. If you want to implement with it, just keep checking that it's going to slightly change because it's in the community group at the W3C. And last week, TPAC happened, the technical conference for the W3C. We had a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions around the API, and we're going to slightly tweak it based on the feedback we've got. It's going to come out in the next 2 weeks, so look out for that. One of the other changes we're making is from the meta tag, we're going to add support for a link tag as well. So it's going to work either as a meta tag or a link tag. The link looks slightly different. Instead of the dollar, you have instead in front of the payment of your payment pointer. That gets converted to an HTTPS and it gets converted into a link. If you'd like to safeguard your website towards the future, I'd add both right now, both the meta tag and the link tag. They look slightly different, but it's exactly the same thing. Just convert the dollars the dollar sign into an HTTPS. And that's one of the other things that's going to change. The Coil extension right now actually supports both of these things, so there's no problem with it right now if you're using both. As I said, we are an open community group. We have regular calls and regular interactions on GitHub. You've probably heard about GitHub during the bootcamp. I would encourage you to join us in there and share some of the work you're doing. If you've added web monetization on your website, or if you have ideas of how this would work better for you, I'd strongly encourage you to go and raise an issue. We also have a lot of open questions in the issues there, things that deal with how web monetization should evolve in the future. For example, there's a proposal there right now about the CSS component web monetization. So if you think about it, you have a meta tag in HTML that is the simplest way to add web monetization, and then you have a JavaScript API, which is a very, very complex use case, a lot of logic involved in that. You can have as custom of an integration as you want, but there's nothing in between that kind of says, hey, I want to show people who are web monetized on my website, I want to show them extra content to thank them for being monetized. Right now, if you want to do that, you'll have to use the JavaScript API, which again, because it's a JavaScript API, it's probably going to be complex. There's a proposal right now for having a CSS version to this, which is going to make it easier to integrate web monetization. Please do join us on GitHub. We're accepting a lot of community feedback right now. I'd love if people from this bootcamp would join there and share some of their experience with it, especially since you've seen web monetization in a context as fresh as learning to code on the web, and that is really important. I was talking about ways you can monetize on the web right now, and Jess mentioned this as well. So it's ads or sales. Web monetization is somewhere in between, and that's because it deals with something called micropayments. Web monetization providers right now send a small amount of money over time in a streaming fashion. Sale, which is kind of directly competing with ads. Ads is the same thing, a small amount of money every time somebody visits your website, maybe a little more if they click. And sales is a different side of the same coin of making money online. But because of the way the sales the sales world works right now, you won't be able to accept small amounts of money. So right now, for me, if I wanted to tip you $1, for example, that's probably okay. I probably tipped more for lunch. Just the fact that I read an article on your website means I could afford $1 or $5 for that matter, and I could pay that for your content. But what happens halfway around the world where $1 feeds a family for quite a while, where $1 isn't something you give away for that easy, where $1 is actually something that makes a difference in your life, what happens then? You can't actually sell. When you're trying to sell things on the internet, it says the internet is available in most of the world. Sales, on the other hand, are not available in most of the world because of the amount of fees or the amount of legal hassles you have to go through to be able to sell globally. You'll be able to sell to, I don't know, the US, the UK, the developed countries. But if you're trying to make money in some of the economies where, or from some of the people where a dollar really does matter, sales doesn't help you there. And that's because if you think about where you keep money where you keep money and where you can move money from to pay for something you bought, right? Right now, it's, I know, on a card you can pay using a card, you can pay using your bank account, or you can pay using something that's not really that, but it holds value. For example, PayPal is not neither a card, neither a bank, but you can pay with PayPal, right? In a similar way, some of the other ways you can pay are, I know, Venmo for the US, a bank account. You can even pay with your Starbucks account. The Starbucks account you have has value in it and you can use it to pay. The problem is, if I want to sell something on my website, I will have to integrate for all of these options, or at least restrict my users to some of the options, right? I won't be able to, for example, I won't be able to accept Starbucks payments or anything like that. If I'm trying to accept bank payments, it's easy to move money from a bank account from a bank into a bank account from the same bank. So that means if I'm trying to sell things in the UK, it's easy to put my bank account up and accept sales to that. It's easy and cheap for people to move money. Money doesn't actually move from one account to the other. Money kind of stays in the bank. A zero moves, or a one or a zero moves in a database in the bank, and that's how money gets transferred. It's easy and cheap. If I try to do the same thing internationally, for example, a little bank in the UK with a bank in the US, it's not as easy, and that's because they use different systems. The same account, the account numbers don't look the same, so I have to put some sort of international format, and then you'll have to pay me internationally, which there's some fees associated with it. Because in this particular example, banks in the UK and banks in the US have relationships, it's not a lot of fees, but it's still a time consuming process. It's a manual process right now. It can take anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours because a human has to approve that transaction. If you try to do the same thing in with two banks that don't have an agreement between them, so for example, whenever I try to send money to my mom, I'm Romanian, I'm from Romania, my mom still lives in Romania, even though I live in the UK right now. And so whenever I try to send money back home, it becomes a problem. It's not easy and it's not cheap. Those two banks don't talk to each other. So technically, when I send money to my mom's bank, the money goes to an intermediary bank in between. It takes about 2 to 3 days to get there. Then the intermediary bank sends the money to my mom's bank. It takes an extra 2 to 3 days to get there. And in the process, I can lose anywhere from 6% or 8 to 18% on the transfer, right? And that's not ideal. If I were to accept sales on my website with that, it'd be a problem. If I wanted to accept payment to Starbucks, or to send money from Starbucks to my mom's little bank in Romania, that becomes impossible. And because of the impossibility of of moving value around the world, there was born something called Interledger. And that's the technology that underpins web monetization. That's the technology that makes web monetization possible. It's a network, Interledger is a protocol and a network that was designed to move money around the world the same way the internet moves packets of data. It was actually based on the TCP/IP protocol, and the same way the TCP/IP is the protocol and the network that runs the TCP/IP protocol. The most commonly known network that runs TCP/IP protocol is called the internet. It works the same way with Interledger. It's a protocol that designs and describes how a network works, in which moving money from point A to point B becomes as easy as the internet. And that's why, for example, I can receive money on web monetization in pounds and the Coil subscription is in dollars, because the network, it uses, web monetization uses the web monetization uses the Interledger network to pay creators. It converts from whatever currency Coil is sending to whatever currency the creator is accepting. So for me, that'd be pounds. For you, it can be anything you want. Um, Uphold, I think, has 90 something currencies, so it can literally be whatever you want to accept money in. And that's one of the issues why selling something on the internet is not a viable option. So Interledger was designed for open payments, being able to literally pay anyone around the world. And the around the world comes because it's designed as a long process. It's designed like a network of nodes where money or packets of money hop around uh, from one node to the next one until they reach that destination, and that's where the exchange happens. It's also a simple protocol. If you read the white paper on it, I think it's 2 pages that describe the concepts that came to make the Interledger protocol. It was actually created by 2 people, Stefan Thomas and Evan Schwartz. Stefan actually happens to be the CEO of Coil, so he went on to build tech that uses the network and the protocol. The network and the protocol live with the foundation, and Coil is one of the company that uses the network to pay people around the world. The same way TCP/IP has different stacks from application all the way down to link. The same way um, the Interledger protocol works. It's mapped almost one-on-one to the internet. There's a difference because when you send packets on the internet and they fail, the internet just ignores the failed packet, just tries resending it again. When you send packets of money, it turns out people get offended if you lose one of the packets of money. So you can't actually lose a packet of money on the network. You can retrieve it, recover it, and resend it again. And as the name suggests, it's a protocol that's designed to connect different ledgers together. Now, don't get confused about ledger and blockchain. There's nothing blockchain in this. Before ledger was a blockchain thing, ledger was actually an accounting thing that meant a big book where you balanced money, uh, and it's designed to kind of bridge the gap between places where you store money. So it's designed to bridge the gap between your bank account and your Starbucks account, for example, or between 2 different banks, or between a bank and a mobile money provider. People in the network, the wallets in the network right now are very different ledgers, very different money providers, but the network provides a bridge in between them. The top layer, and which the one you probably see, is called SPSP, and that is responsible for that little payment pointer you have. SPSP is the part of the network that you'll interact with the most, because if you're getting a payment pointer, if you're getting the payment pointer from Uphold, that is what you're getting, the SPSP gateway. The thing that starts with the dollar, that's your SPSP layer. There's also something that's called Stream, which probably is relevant in the terms of web monetization because is the part that streams money. As I said, you're paying people when you're surfing a website, you're paying people at a rate of 36 cents an hour, and those payments happen as a stream rather than individual small payments. It's a stream of money that kind of flows towards them. The way the stream is encoded is in a little packet. The same way the internet works on packets of data, Interledger works on little packets of money, and that gets sent into different ledgers. So, for example, when you're using Coil and Uphold, actually gets sent from the Coil node to the Uphold ledger and then deposited into your account. It works similar to banking as well. It provides a clearing and a settlement level. We won't talk about that because probably clearing and settlement is something that I don't really understand that well after being in fintech for quite a few years now. Um, but it was designed to kind of sit in between all these different ledgers and kind of bridge them and gap them so you can talk from a bank account or PayPal account and so on and so forth. Sadly, none of these people are on the network right now, so you can't really talk to them. You'll have to put your money into one of the wallets, or you'd have to use one of the wallets that are on the network that's upholding GitHub, and they talk to each other and they're able to move money between each other. So if you were to sell on Interledger today, or if you were to accept payments using Interledger today, there's a limited use case for it. But in the future, and that's the future we're working for, is to be able to have one payment method, Interledger, and have your address on Interledger and be able to accept payments there without worrying where the money is coming from, where your users want to pay you from. In the same way, right now, if I wanted to accept a dollar, none of these systems would allow me to accept a dollar, to be paid a dollar, because the fees on it are astronomical. I'd lose 60%, up to 60% on it, on a dollar, because it's like 30 cents is the base minimum that the fees are from. In the same way, Interledger would allow you to accept payments as low as a dollar, even lower in the sense of cents for your website. And that's the technology that's enabling web monetization. As Jess said, web monetization wasn't a novel idea. The problem was micropayments. Web monetization relied on micropayments, being able to accept a very small amount of money, or to move a very small amount of money. The networks you have right now for moving money, be it card, PayPal, bank accounts, they're not designed, they're not allowing you to move a very small amount of money. Interledger, on the other hand, allows you to send and receive that small amount of money, and it makes it perfect for web monetization. And that's why the current standard relies on Interledger to move that money. If you want to get involved, there's various different ways you can get involved. We're an open foundation. A lot of the work we do is open source. You can join the community calls. They happen every 2 weeks. A lot of people on Interledger, a lot of the people involved with Interledger show up and kind of share some progress of their project, of their company, of their product. Everybody hangs out there twice every 2 weeks. Please feel free to join. It's an open call. You can join in. You can even share some of the websites you've been building. You can share some of the work you've been doing with web monetization. We'd love to see that. Um, Also, there's a website, interledger.org. All of our active projects are listed there. One of them is Grant for the Web. I'll talk about Grant for the Web in a little second. The other way you can join, we have a community on forum, the web monetization community. Feel free to jump in there. There's a bunch of people showcasing what they've been doing with web monetization and showcasing their experiments with it. There's a lot to learn from the people who are experimenting with web monetization right now. As I said, Grant for the Web is one of the programs for the Interledger Foundation, and we're funding innovation by promoting diversity and inclusion on the web. We have open grants for up to $100,000 right now, to experiment with web monetization. If you'd like to build or experiment, explore web monetization, there's a grant application process, for up to $100,000 to kind of enable you to experiment. Sadly, the current CFP, the current call for proposals, has finished last month. We're in the last stages of giving our project a reply, but there's a new one coming early next year. If you go for the grant for the web, you'll be the first to know when the new grant process starts. I'd look out for that. As I said, we're an open foundation. Feel free to join interledger.org or go on interledger.org and see what else we've been working on. The web monetization standard is just one part of what we do. We're really interested in open payments as well. If that's your thing, we'd be really happy for you to reach out and have a conversation. As I said, thank you. This was me. Don't forget, if you want Coil codes to try out Coil or to try out paying creators on the web, reach out on Twitter. I'm Lakatos. Feel free to DM me. I've got open DMs, and I'll send you one of the Coil codes that gives you 6 months of a membership to try out, see how it feels when you're making some of these day a little better. Thank you so much. I feel like I've seen a lot of chat happening. All the
Yeah.
questions.
I thought I'd go ahead and join you to help moderate some of these questions. And some of these are a little bit out of scope, but I've been telling my learners all week, like, oh, Alex is going to join us. You can ask him anything. He knows everything. So I've really set you up to fail here.
Thank you
Uh,
for that.
I should add, Alex and I are friends in real life. I'm not always so mean to all of my guests. So, our learners, if you join us later as guests, I won't be mean to you at all. Alex, do you know what? Phil had this really good question, and I love it because it's like, Alex, could you? Is such a gentle way to start a question. Can you talk to us about how Interledger and the new tailor, and I don't know anything about that, might be similar or different. And do you know? I've never heard of the new tailor.
I'm sorry, what's new, Taylor?
Let me see if I can get it. It's a it is a free software-based microtransaction and electronic payment system relying on blind signatures, which I've um so I think that, Phil, the way that do you want me to do this for you? We
Actually,
don't
so
know
I looked.
yet.
No, I looked at it.
Oh,
I know. Here's the difference between them, and I'm gonna probably be half wrong for this, but I feel like the biggest, from my point of view, the biggest difference is there's no risk with Interledger because the participants in the network, not everybody can join. Well, technically, everybody can join the network because you need a peering relationship. The same way you open up a computer and you plug it in the internet, right? Everybody can join the network. The problem is the same way as the internet, you have to peer with someone. Whenever you connect to the internet with a computer, you're actually peering with your internet service provider, right? You're not a participant node in the internet, you're an edge on the internet. So you have a relationship with whoever's giving you internet access, right? And they're responsible for you. If you do something bad on the internet, they might cut access to the internet. If you're not a good participant, they'll remove you from their network, right? If you're creating a new system. The same way Interledger works, if you want to be a node in the network and if you want to be able to issue money commands into the network, you have to peer with one of the nodes. Now, because of the way the nodes are set up, to have that peering relationship, you have to have a money license. So me as an individual, I can accept payments, I can make payments, but I can't be a provider in the network. I can't start issuing commands into the network. And the reason that is because every node has to have a money license to be able to peer to somebody else. There's no risk in the network. Money going from point A to point B is always accounted for. Whereas for New Taller, it's not that, not that, not that. Um, that relationship
I'm a
isn't in
professional.
place, right? Yeah. So that relationship isn't in place. Anybody can start using it,
Yeah.
and it comes with regulatory requirements and a bunch of other things.
You want a question that's a little bit out of scope, but I thought we might both wobble through it together. And this is one of the learners in the boot camp who just always asks. If you ever want to learn with somebody who asks questions that make you go, "Oh, I should know that," but let's look it up. Alex, how does an ad blocker work? You mentioned an ad blocker.
Yes. So it kind of depends. It kind of depends on what one you're using. So for example, I have multiple layers of ad blockers because, as I said, ad makers are being smarter and smarter, and they're literally trying to outwit ad blockers. So they come up with different ways to make ads. So then you have different ways of blocking ads. So mine has two levels. One of which is on my home network. I have a Raspberry Pi that acts as a honeypot. So I have a Raspberry Pi that just denies everything that's an ad URL on my network. It doesn't even reach my browser, right? Because that's the first layer. On my network, it acts like a routing mechanism.
And it's
And the
fair to
second one,
describe like a Raspberry Pi is just a little teeny baby computer. Like
yeah.
it's a little bitty computer. Sorry, I love to interrupt you. It's my favorite hobby.
So I have the Pi Zero, the new Pi Zero that came out, W2W or whatever. I think the whole setup cost $20 because I had to get a power source. The whole board was like $7 or something, but then I had to get a power board and to connect it into my router. So the whole setup was about $20. And I have that on my network. It sits on my router and my entire household connects to that. No ad, no ad URL, known ad URL, and the Pi actually self updates itself. So when there's a new known ad URL, it gets added to the Pi, and it kind of denies that. That means everything that's Facebook ads or Google ads or Carbon ads, for example, they just don't show up in my browser. They don't get downloaded to my browser. I get served. So those files actually get served as a zero kilobyte file. And the second level is for the ones that do get through. In the browsers, I have an ad blocking extension. Now, the ad blocking extension does something that's CSS based, and it does a bunch of it queries the web page for a bunch of known selected for ads, and then just removes them from the page. So the ad actually gets served for a millisecond, a few milliseconds, and then gets removed by the ad blocker on the page.
That sounds fantastic. I'm cheating, and I've got a question from me because when you mentioned the JavaScript API you have and that you all are going to be changing it soon, I let them know. I mean, we haven't announced what we're doing next with the boot camp, but I can imagine a future, maybe in January, where we're talking about JavaScript. I said, "Oh, you love to be put on the spot live, don't you?" I said, "Oh, maybe we can bully Alex to come back and show us how to use the Interledger API in January." Does that sound so like something we could probably like bully you into doing? Maybe, maybe.
Actually, I would love to do that. It's one that I have designed, so I have feelings about it. I'd love to see how people react to it live. Definitely, I'll be back.
Fab. So you heard it. Alex is going to teach you how to use APIs, and if you don't understand APIs at the end of it, it's really all your fault, isn't it, Alex?
Ever since I first met you, Jess, everything has been my fault. Yes, 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 mom.
Well, and that's something someone else pointed out is, well, I think yeah, you mentioned your mom in this technical talk. How absolutely precious. Is she very proud of you?
She is. She is. It's her birthday this month, and I don't get
Oh,
to see her. Sadly, we'll have a similar powwow online for her birthday. She's ooh,
don't you tell people how old your mother is. Your mother is somewhere. She's in Romania now.
she's in Romania now. Yeah, yeah.
She's somewhere going like this, and she doesn't know what. She's just waiting to be offended. She's like, "Someone somewhere is about to say my age out loud." No, no.
She's still young at heart.
Eh,
I'm young at heart, so she's young at heart.
does anybody else have any questions? And there's no silly questions. No, but the only person who's going to be mean to anybody is me being mean to Alex. No matter what your question is, so long as it's not like way, way inappropriate, we're going to be so happy to see if we can answer it. So, questions about getting paid on the internet. And if I've missed your question, do kick it at me again. I'm a little bit rubbish this week. Uh, Alex, you showed us during the talk, you showed us your own sort of wallet, your own money that you've gotten paid from having your own website. What are you going to do with those 12 quid or
Oh,
1168?
that is a very very good question. So I'm gonna put it back into my Coil account so I can pay other people from it. Um, Coil is actually working on a bunch of different things. One of which is tipping. You've probably seen I was very sneaky, and my extension has tipping enabled. So right now, people can stream money from by watching a web page. They're adding the ability to actually tip a small amount of money to people. For example, $1. So my account has tipping enabled. I will use that money to tip other people on the internet that use web monetization, because I feel like the world would benefit from a lot of people sharing that knowledge. And I've been doing that for a while. I know you've been doing that for the longest time. And I feel like I should encourage that type of behavior a little more. And I'm going to spend those £12 kind of spreading it around.
And you mentioned that you've got codes. I want to make sure I understand this correctly because, this has to be wrong. If I were, and that's not a hypothetical, I'm clearly going to make you give me a code. That means that it's effectively some money. It's just that you're going to give me some money with the requirement that I give it to other people through web monetization. You're going to give me money that I can use to tip other people for cool websites?
Exactly. So and the reason I'm doing this is because that's what I'm doing with the money I got from Web Monetization as well. I'm spreading it around. I feel like I should enable more people to do that. So I've got about 100 codes. Please reach out on Twitter. We have about 100 codes. Every code is about $30 spread over
What?
6 months. So you'll get 6 months of paying people for the work online on actually on Uchi and Alex and Coil and everybody involved on Jazz. Jazz can take credit for that as well. It's just my way of helping people paid forward.
So, and I love this because there's this sort of built-in, really warm, cuddly utilitarianism because you're like, I got free money, but you have to give it to other people. How absolutely delightful. It's not your like you're getting it from like your boss is paying for this, not you, right?
I think the nice people at Coil are paying for it.
There we
The nice
okay,
people at
good.
Coil aren't my boss, but the nice people at Coil are giving it to me so I can give away. They were nice enough to help us
Yeah.
here, and I feel that's some of the that's some of the spirit of web monetization right now. It's a community of people who just want to work together and share together. Hopefully,
So,
some of the people on this call are going to be part of that community. I
yeah.
love that.
I like folks are really excited like going into making their project websites. I bet, hey, and y'all can get paid from that. That's not going to be a terrible pitch. Matchstore makes a really good point to say, hey, if we're using web monetization more generally, or if we get this voucher and we've got this like free money from Coil, how can we verify? Like, how can we know, or how can we be confident that that money's gone through to the recipient? What a cool
That's a very
question,
good question.
right?
So
You know,
here's the
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
pick on my learners because, like, I see the same names again, and like, like Kai, always fantastic questions. Mad Store, fantastic questions, and the questions that really make me go, "Huh." Always this youngin.
So the web right now has a privacy problem. One of the reasons I'm not a fan of ads is the tracking component of them. I mean, even I can't ignore ads forever. And if I see it 6 or 7 times, I think there's some research that says if you've seen an ad 6 or 7 times, you'll click on it, right? I'm not made out of stone. I don't have that much of a will, so I'll click on it. The problem is ads track me and know what I'm more likely to click on and show me what I'm more likely to click on. And as somebody who has way too many pairs of shoes, I can tell you ads work. Definitely ads work, right? And that's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of it. Sometimes I'm weak and they take advantage of me, and that's because they track me and they know what I'm into, what I do, and they serve the ads that are more likely to make me pay, right? And I'm not a fan of that predatory
So
of
really what you're
approach.
telling us is that if any of us have any shoes to sell, we need to hit you up first. So if anybody's like, you know, I'm a clothing designer, I'm gonna make some shoes. Alex Lakatos, everybody.
I will also test your shoes for money. It won't be for free. If you happen to have shoes 10.5, I have a it's not an ever growing collection. I don't think it was ever a collection. I don't like to just store them. I'll wear them outside. But yes, the difference here is Coil as a culture doesn't really believe in this tracking bit, and they didn't want to know who was paying who on the web. So they actually created this very complicated process of privatizing and anonymizing all the data. So
Ooh.
Coil doesn't actually know who's sending money from which account to the other one. So what they do is they have this for every account on the Coil network. They put $5 in a bucket and they kind of tokenize the bucket. And you, when you connect, they take money from that bucket and they put it wherever you happen to be on the page. But it's never they never know what the page is. So the money goes from Coil into your browser, and your browser sends it to the appropriate address, that payment pointer. And Coil doesn't actually know. What you can know on the page is if the money went through and the receipt, get a receipt for the money. So because the browser right now, I talked about that Interledger packet of money, right? The browser actually packages that small amount of money and sends it into the Interledger network. When it got to the destination, you'll get a receipt back. So on the page, you'll see that somebody paid you, somebody that's on the page paid you, but you don't know who's on the page, and that's because of that privacy awareness. You won't be able to target and track them the same way ads do.
Cool. So you'll get a receipt, but there's this privacy hidden behind it. And we've got just the purest possible question coming up next. I really like this. Alex, why do you define yourself as an artist? What kind of artist are you, lovely? I mean, the
I'm not an
lovely's
artist, I'm a
implied.
creator.
A
And
creator.
I can't draw a straight line if my life depends on it.
Is a
But
creator not a type of artist?
I know I create with words. I'm a wordsmith. Is that an artist?
A
I
web
don't know.
developer is a type of artist, isn't it?
So I
You know
actually
what?
have
Oh, please.
the most respect for people who create on the web with JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. I feel like those are artists in their own right. I feel like even my website isn't my website. The whole art on my website, I love it, but it's a fellow artist that designed the entire website, and I just that's my way of being part of this community. My website is a piece of art, but I didn't create that piece of art. I can appreciate it. I didn't create it.
Ragnarok has got a really cool question where it's like, hey, you were talking about and this is a philosophical question, isn't it? So say, hey, when we're talking about the privacy that we really lose or the privacy that's taken from us by these ad networks. And you know what? I'm going to expand this a bit further and say, you know what, when we're talking about sort of surveillance capitalism within the context of advertising networks, how might we quantify the value of either our privacy or how might we talk about or discuss or begin to examine the value of privacy as a larger concept on the web? Like, this question wins for something that's going to mess me up for a week. What what's the value of privacy? And can
So
we? I
whoever
think I'd like not even what is the value? Can we begin to quantify that in a meaningful way?
this is beyond impressive. I mean, the question is amazing. Is
Right?
amazing. Yeah. Whoever had this question, please reach out. Please reach out. Mention you're the person that specifically had this question, and I've got a little surprise for you. TBD, but you'll see. This was by far the best question I ever got on a live interaction with community. Thank you. I feel like this is gonna be one of those shitty answers that you always get. It depends,
One of those
and that's
messy answers, sir.
my poppy mouth. I'm
We're good.
sorry. I'm sorry. Pardon my French, but no, it's one of those. I think it highly depends on you as an individual. How much do you value your privacy, right? And me as an individual, I value my privacy quite highly because I join I join sessions like this. I go up on stage. I have a public profile and I give away some of my privacy freely. I would like to know that when I surf the web, or when I do things on the flip side of that, I have complete privacy. And I feel like every person kind of feels exactly how much privacy they're willing to give up. I think that's the reason why I'm not on Facebook anymore, for example. I wasn't really comfortable with the amount of data I was sharing just to keep in touch with friends I haven't seen in 10 years. And that trade for me didn't make sense at a certain point. So I've jumped off of Facebook, right? I feel everybody has kind of their own value for privacy and you have to figure it out for yourself. I'm really curious to know what's your take on this, Jess?
So it's such a and I love a question that's going to mess me up for a week. What so how do we quantify and like that's the part of this is gonna mess me up. Like, how do we quantify the value of privacy? And here we're talking specifically about ads, but more generally, how do we quantify the value of privacy on the web? Hold on, you know I've got a reading list for this. Oh, you know what? The so I really like the book Surveillance Capitalism, is a heavy book. Although all of these learners are smarter than me, so they'll zip through it. And that's a really, really good start for better understanding it, but it also helps better illustrate the financial scope of what our privacy is worth to the companies that, I'm gonna be gentle, the companies that, were built on it. That's very soft. So this isn't a $1 million or $1 billion market. This is a multi-trillion-dollar market. The trading of personal data, the building of advertising networks on top of this. We've talked about sort of Facebook a couple or Google as an example. Both of these are companies that have different kinds of products, but they're effectively what they're selling at the end of the day is advertising based on your personal data, the antithesis of your privacy. The question, the philosophical question, what does it mean? What is my privacy worth to me? When do I trade it? And am I making informed enough choices to even be aware of the value? Woof. I don't know. And I'm really interested in the space. But like, what is this worth? How might we quantify it? I'd say it is the value of so much of the technology industry that has monetized this. And even that we say, oh, it's a multi-trillion dollar quantification, but we can't, our data, this privacy really is the erosion of our personal data, the exposure of our personal data. That's not going away. That's going to continue to be combined and recombined and sold and traded. It's today, it's a multi-trillion dollar quantification, but gosh, we have no idea how our individual privacy is going to continue to be, yeah, traded on in meaningful ways. Sorry, I'm not. Everything's fine and everything's going to be fine. I'm aware that I made that sound very scary.
I
Like
feel like
baby steps with the terror.
after this conversation, I was anxious enough, and after this, I'm gonna need to go to the pub and find a beer and find a bunch of my friends to kind of have this conversation in a way that doesn't that makes me want to wake up tomorrow morning. It is very concerning, and if you think about some of the new things that some of these companies are putting out there, just as a way to get more of your data, I'm gonna reference the 3D world you saw in a certain announcement this week, right? And that's another way where right now, at least, they had some sort of 2D analog of me and what I'm into, what I like, and whatever. But it's gonna get to the point where there's gonna be a lot more of that, and they're gonna entice people to give up a lot more than that. I feel like if I can't put the dollar value or any sort of similar value on privacy right now, and for me, privacy is transactional, which is probably wrong. Privacy shouldn't be transactional. It's not like I gave away some of my privacy today. Taking back privacy is really, really hard today. So I feel like this is a different conversation.
So I think with this, let's go ahead and let's wrap this up in a slightly less existential way. Wow, the philosoph and the learners, gosh bless them. They're just so chill. So often they're like, "I've got a question." And I'm like, "Oh, this is a philosophy question." And they've been so patient. They humor me so. Um, but in a less philosophical way, if somebody said, "Hey, I want to look at an ecosystem where the money we're trading to creators isn't around trading your data. It's not around selling." Does web monetization sort of replace that ecosystem with just cash and say, hey, instead of I like your stuff, I'm going to let you hoover up my data, even though I'm probably not aware of it. Just like, oh, hey, I like this. Have my literal 2 cents. Is that a chiller way to do it? Or a route to a slightly happier future, potentially?
I feel like there's two different things in here. One of them is if you don't believe in free stuff, then you think you have to pay for it somehow. And instead of paying it with data, you can pay with actual money, right? And that's what happens with gated content right now. If you want to read the news article, you'll have to pay into it. Monetization is trying really hard to address some of that. Yeah, you put some effort into creating this. I'd like to read it. Here's something that represents kind of same thing. The other part in here that web monetization addresses is if you wanted to make money, everybody tells you ads are the simplest, easiest, whatever way to, that's the default. And because that's the default, it enables even more tracking, even more. It kind of balloons itself. If everybody goes to this as the number one way to monetize, right? It's gonna stay the same. It's gonna balloon into bigger and bigger networks, bigger and better ads, right? If web monetization is the default and it actually has the same value as ads are gonna go away. If you are gonna start monetizing without ads, you're gonna start making money on the internet without ads or free money, right? Then they're gonna go away. They're not gonna get as much data about you, and the ad networks become less and less effective. Right now, web monetization is not trying to kill ads. The mission here is not to kill ads. I can see a future where ads won't be the case. Actually, I was talking about Grant for the Web and the web monetization community. If you go there, one of the past grantees actually had a thought exercise where they looked at web monetization and they looked at it in a context of where this is going in the future. They actually have three different possible futures of how web monetization is going to work, which are amazing. One of which web monetization replaces ads, and the other one is because of web monetization, ads become obsolete. People aren't gonna. If me as Google, I can make 2 cents, or I can pay you 2 cents for this. I won't be able to. I won't need to serve you ads. I can just pay the 2 cents because Google doesn't, or Facebook with the ad networks, right? They make money by selling that space, and they make a couple of cents. You make a couple of cents. Everybody makes a little bit of money, right? If you're able to pay that, then ads go away because it's not viable anymore. So it feels like a lot of the future options of the possible futures are going to make ads go away as part of web monetization. Right now, that's not the mission. The mission here is to help people get paid on the web.
So, right now, a lot of things are a little bit scary, but we've got a lot of spaces where stuff could maybe be a little bit quieter and a little bit calmer and a little more private in the future. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all very much as well. I'm going to go ahead and say good day to you, Alex. And I'm going to wish all of you goodbye as well. So, those of you who are taking part in the Free Web Development Bootcamp, we're going to see you next week on Monday or Tuesday. You can come to both if you want, but they're the same thing. And we're going to be looking at our final projects and what we want to go ahead and do with those. I think this is going to go ahead and be our final guest, and excitingly, our first sponsor guest. But we will have a very exciting announcement coming up next week, I bet, about the sort of future scope of boot camps and what continued learning might look like. Don't worry, we're not going to leave y'all in the cold. Um, until next week, or until the next time you get time to say hi, I've been Jessica Rose, and thank you so much for joining us.